doing?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. How are you, my work wife?
Good, honey. I'm excited about today and our guest that we'll be bringing on and what we'll be talking about today. We're going to be diving into some pretty cool things here on our open house.
I know. It's so exciting how we found this woman, or rather, how she found us by a battle with Random House. How blessed are we to have opened up an email, like back in December, I think it was, to a beautiful email from her and Kate asking, how can we talk? How can we meet up virtually? Because she's in New York City, of course. And so hasn't it been wonderful working with Random House? Tell our viewers what we've done and what we have in the future before we bring Maya on to talk about summer reads.
Yeah, no, it's been a wonderful ride. And first of all, once you meet Maya, you'll notice she totally is like our people. As far as her vibe and energy, she's just super awesome, as well as Kate. And but we've had the pleasure as a result of this relationship. Some of you probably caught us. We took over Instagram well enough. Just what was it, last month, right? I think it was
so fun. Right?
And it was a total blast to actually speak with some of the authors on the Random House portfolio and talk everything about menopause to eating healthy and staying fit and tips for kind of staying well through that, phase in our life. And it was just cool to be able to be talking to a whole new audience that gets what we're all about and is walking the walk with us. So it's been just a freaking pleasure working with her and her team.
It really has. And actually, that was our first takeover of an IG channel.
Air 5. It was. And it was so much fun, and I think it was one of those where we started to see, that it was, it can be something really kind of cool to just kind of have a conversation and connect with other women in that space.
Absolutely. And we want to welcome everyone. When you're tuning in today, we are meeting in a moment with Maya Battle, who is with Random House. And we are going to be talking about and getting some of her ideas and takes on some of the hottest summer reads. So we know our book club is excited to hear more about what they should be choosing to read this summer. And so without further ado, I am going to welcome to the stage Maya Battle.
Hi. I have the pleasure of getting to see Lupe and Barbara pretty frequently at this point, and so they're just totally part of my life now. So
we love to hear that. Oh my goodness. Well, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here today with us.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and so Maya, as you said, we've had a lot of conversations with you, and interesting enough, we have noticed, not right now, but in the past, because we have our cameras angled differently, but you have quite the book selection. I mean, you are a reader.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I have been working at Penguin Random House for a good 14 and a half years now. So my bookshelves are, a combination of books I've worked on, books that are, still on my TBR, to be read stack, a few books that I actually am so nutty about my books, and other folks tell me if this is nutty too. I actually have two separate bookshelves. So I have one corner where it's books that folks that come over. I very much like to think of it as a library for my friends, family that come over. If you see something interesting or you need a recommendation, just go to the shelf, grab something. I'm not going to necessarily miss that book. Just let me know which one you take. And then I have a separate closed cabinet that has all the books that I don't want anybody to touch.
And you know what I love? You just listed something that I think a lot of us have, but we haven't actually given it a name, let alone an acronym. You have a to be read list. Mm-hmm. And so how far back does that list go? And what are some of the things that are on there?
I mean, if I had to say where did the whole, I have books that I've had since I was 10 years old. I have when I first, I lived, with my parents for the year after I graduated from college. And then when I moved in with a couple of friends from high school, I took all these books with me. so I like moved along, and at that point, I just started at Penguin. So the books I had were just like very focused on the genres that I generally like to read. So a lot of nonfiction, a lot of mystery thrillers, love a good murder.
Like oh my gosh,
murder mysteries.
I love that.
That is a huge genre. Everybody loves these ID channels, the podcasts, the books.
I am totally obsessed.
Absolutely.
So,
and you know what? And I'm curious, you said you had some of these books since you were 10. So like what sparked the passion for books for you? Like, I mean, it sounds like it dated back to like you were young.
Yeah. I come from a family of really big readers. My mom is, my inspiration for, how often I read, how many books I read. She, when I was a kid, had like the craziest stack of books I've ever seen. And I've yet to see, I've again worked in book publishing for 4.5 years. I have not seen anybody with stacks of books. So she almost exclusively reads like traditional women's fiction. So, some spicy romance, a lot of Danielle Steele, which I was thrilled to know that when I came over to Random House, I actually get to work on her books. That was so exciting for my mom, maybe more so than me, but exciting in general. Yeah. But she had basically a wall of it was, instead of having a real wall, or there was a real wall, we couldn't see it because there were literally stacks and stacks of these mass market paperbacks. And my mom is also one of the quickest readers I've ever known. And I remember when I was still living at home, I would commute to work with her, and she would get off a few stops before me. And then I would go, I think I was working at the Brooklyn Public Library at the time, and she worked over by Court Street in downtown Brooklyn. And, in the mornings, like she would have her book that she would read on the train and then somehow be done with it, or like maybe was halfway through it, just finishes the other half in like half an hour.
Oh my goodness.
And then we would get off and I would have coffee with my mom before I like went on to do what I was doing. And we would go to Barnes and Noble to get coffee and buy a new book. And I swear she would read that book during her lunch break and on her way home, and it was done. I have no idea. She is the fastest reader. So like each of these books, she read all of them. A lot of and like a lot of the books on my shelves, I'll be real, I haven't read them yet, so they are my TBR. But yeah, like my mom was just like the most voracious reader I've ever known, and like since then, like when I was I want to say also when I was 10, that was one of the first books that I read and kept was The Stand by Stephen King. And I have been like avid mystery, thriller, suspense, horror fan since then. And I was like, Watership Down, then The Stand, and I was just like, ooh, I really like reading, but I'm gonna start with like the massive books. I have no idea. I have no idea why.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so that's just stuck with my life for so long. A good long book is great. You get to live in the world. But I also really like kind of that fast fiction or self-help books that really, inspire you to do a thing. And, that's kind of how I got involved with our Well Enough channel with Random.
Yes, tell us about that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely changed my outlook really on a lot of what I read and how I talk about books with other people, because I wasn't necessarily a traditional health and wellness reader. I wasn't really into yoga books. I mean, like I did yoga, but like more in a like, all right, I have a gym pass, I need to go.
Yes,
no impact. Like I'll run on the treadmill when I wanna. I need to like do something that's scheduled, so I like get off my butt and actually go to the gym. But yeah, I never really read books like that and spent a lot of time with like cookbooks and other things. I don't like people telling me what to do.
I hear you, right?
Like working with these health and wellness books under Well Enough, I'm like seeing, there are instances where it's not just nutrition and food or, the traditional fitness books that we publish. It's also like a bigger ecosystem of all the things that really, what does wellness mean for you? For me, it means having a moment to like be myself and relax, to unplug, That's like one of the, when we interview our audiences or do polls or anything, that's basically the number one for any reader. Just like, I want to get away from the day to day. And I never really thought about picking up like more prescriptive wellness books, but we have such a wide variety of things that fit under the main umbrella of being well, not just feeling well or necessarily having to change something about your lifestyle, but is there information that helps enhance it? Do you feel like there's information that you're getting and sharing with other people, which is like, one of the best things about working with Barbara and Lupe is like, I get to talk about books outside of the context of the book world and talk about how they actually help people. And that's always like, I always feel good about that.
And we found that to be even so evident when we took over Instagram. I mean, we were talking to authors from all backgrounds that were sharing everything from aromatherapy to fitness routines to food you can eat. So, I mean, I love, in that aspect, when you say it's not so prescriptive, there's, depending on kind of what, what's your jam, like you're saying, I don't like to be told, what to do, but like, if you are like, hey, you know what, I want to clean up my eating, or I want to, find ways to hit the gym a little bit more, you can get focused on that without being distracted by all the other tips that people are throwing your way to feel good and kind of, you're able to develop on one particular area and then branch out should you want to, which is really cool.
And I'm curious how Well Enough came to be, because it feels as if it's a newer campaign for Random House, or is it? And how did it come to be, and why, in a sense? I think you've already said why, but I'm curious about that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely more to the why. One of the things that's great, but also a little weird about book publishing is that we have a larger company, larger umbrella, but then we have different divisions that under that umbrella that specialize in different things. So for Random House, we were very much settled, or very much in the area of nonfiction, sort of like the reading books. That we like to say they're reading books because you sit down, you might take notes, you might highlight things, but they're essentially like you're sitting down to like fully read this book, essentially. Not so much chapters you can jump around in, and a lot of fiction, obviously. But one of the things that happened more recently is that we merged with another part of the company that focused on health and wellness books, because that's, especially in the last, it's always been, a huge, focus for a lot of people. Everybody's looking to do self-improvement. But one of the things that we saw was that, when you look at other, trends and genres of books and what's going on in those areas, health and wellness and just like learning like how to do your thing better, like it continues to sell really well. And, I work in a marketing publicity angle. So for us, like being able to tap into like what's trending for people and the ideas and content that actually get them going, get them talking about a book, recommend it to their friends, buying multiple copies. I know people who buy our books and they'll have one copy that's the clean copy, another copy that's the copy that they like riff up and write in and dog ear everything. And for those of you who are crazy book people, totally get it. I also have multiple copies of books. But yeah, like we just saw that trend, and then we also saw the need. And I think, we did the Well Enough kind of rebranding. So it started as, channels, like mostly social and email for that particular imprint. But then we saw that we have other books across our other imprint groups that, totally speak to the same thing. So, good example of that is actually one of the books that you just showed on the screen, Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. I worked on that book as a hardcover and a paperback, like I want to say almost years ago at this point. It's kind of.
I love Dan Harris, by the way. I'm a big Good Morning America person.
Yeah, the 10% happier guy.
Yes.
And we have exciting things with him coming up soon too. So like everybody.
By the way, this book completely fits me, right, Lupe? Fidgety skeptics.
It's like it should be like meditation for squirrels, like for
exactly. Yeah.
Squirrel moments.
Exactly. And that ended up being kind of the new brand identity for Well Enough, and that's why we call it Well Enough. It's like you're fine as you are, but there are some things that you should know about, you should consider. How can we help you make better decisions? It's not just telling you what to do. It's here are the tools and the information and the author experts and places that on the web that you can go or in real life that will support your overall well-being, whatever that means to you, because it totally means different things. Wellness for me is waking up and not being stressed. You know, I am one of those people that works through lunch. How can I, you know, break up my time so that I'm making sure, go for a walk, take that break, make a coffee. And I, you know, for years was just like the person who's just like, all right, once I'm focused, I'm just doing this thing. And then I wake up in the morning and I'm just kind of like, oh, like, what is this anxiety? I just like haven't let it go at all through the day. And so, you know, when I was working on these books that are more the reading books, one of the things that we were looking at with Well Enough is that, you know, again, like this is a broader category of how do you feel better for yourself? And, you know, it's not just a hardcore health and wellness audience. It's just people just trying to find information, inspiration. I've read books before about meditation and I don't meditate, but I keep those principles in mind. And that's really one of the things that we, you know, really like to lean into too. Like, you don't have to do anything right now, but here's a tool.
Right.
Well, and you know what I love too is when you tune in to this Well Enough Today. So not only on your Instagram page is really solid pieces of great books and ideas and tips and tricks, but I love that you literally can download this Well Enough sampler, which, look at all of what, you know, you get in this sampler. It's 29 pages of routines, of helping us make those changes, of giving us healthy recipes, as it says here, and giving us, things to do to maybe if you don't have a morning, afternoon, or evening routine, either one of those or all of those, these are great jump starts to
exactly.
I love this.
Yeah, that's my number one too. When I started working with the Well Enough team, I wasn't originally on the team, and when we did our last kind of reshuffle with our group to include health and wellness, I started working on those titles more. And you know, one of the things that I thought was cool about how we repositioned it is the fact that, you know, there's so much information out in the world, and it's just like, how do you focus on the things, like what are the key takeaways? And you know, a lot of folks, if you're busy, you have your day-to-day, you still might pick up a book, but we also understand that a lot of people need some quick takeaways. So we keep our some of that kind of daily content, daily advice, we have on our Instagram channel and in email. Our emails are really just like, here's information from a particular expert about this topic.
Oh, I subscribe. I love it.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm glad you guys do it. And it's great. It's not, we're not heavy-handed about what you should do or not do. We're here to be a resource.
A guide. And then you got to pick what's best for you. And what I like, you know, even between like my work wife and I, she's definitely the audiobook queen. I am definitely like, I need my heart. Like I can't.
Exactly. I'm not like, I need to page through something.
I have to page. Like I just can't focus. Like I can't drive. And like, you know, even though I'm a multitasker at heart, but like when it comes to listening and actually taking it in, I find that so challenging. But I'm glad that you offer both versions through Random.
Can I tell you what I do?
You can choose what you want.
Please.
So you know what I do? I actually, I do the audiobook version, and I buy the book and I highlight through the book because
we love people like you.
I'm like an old school, you know, I still write everything in a book, in a journal, right? Like books. I mean, not journal. I don't journal. I wish I could, but I'm still old school in those ways, yet I love tech. So I blend the two.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what, as people are watching, we would love to know what are on your top book list for the summer, because we're talk talk about that in a moment. And if you're tuning in, we have Random House, so exciting, our newest partner of Second X Women. We have a lot of things we're talking about, right, that we're doing in the near future. And so we'd love to hear from you. What are some books? It's okay if it's not on their label. We're all, okay with that, as long as you're
books
to read.
Book agnosticism is one of, like, in our, I work in audience development, and part of what that means for us is finding people in new places and getting them to come to us to read books and, be part of our community. And, with any community, it can't be insular. Like, that never works. It's like,
Right.
there's something that, there might be something that we have a book in, but maybe there's an expert from another publisher or another area who, maybe they speak to it better. And a lot of times, like for our publicity campaigns, our marketing campaigns, we might reach out to those folks and just make that connection and, expose our authors to their audiences and vice versa. So,
Yes.
especially in this category of book, I don't think there's anything, there's no such thing as too much information as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. I mean,
Just how much do you process and hold is really what it comes down to.
yeah. I see that there are a couple of questions. Oh yeah, getting things done. I worked on that when I was on the Penguin side of the company. And David Allen is a wonderful human being. So
you know what? I have that book too. I haven't read it. Yeah, tell us a few things. Bonnie, love that. Yay. That is a popular book for a lot of people that are trying to figure out ways to get ish done. I have to say ish because my mom, 84-year-old mom, is back here. So I'm trying to be
duly noted.
Gotta keep it PG. Gotta keep it PG.
It's PG. So what are some other books, Maya, that you could share with us that are in the area of hot summer reads? Wow. Oh, I love Verona. Just joined us. What are some of the hot summer reads?
Yeah, I mean, we have so much in different categories. So, I'll start with like the category that's near and dear to my heart, mystery thrillers, and, kind of that more lighter literary fiction. So I don't know if folks have watched Normal People or Conversations with Friends yet, but that's us. We like to, have, and the thing about it is that it deals with issues that we don't really talk about in other books. So like, what does it look like? What is an affair? What is an affair? What does that look like? What are these interpersonal connections? So
Right.
I really love that. And, I also love television and I probably watch too much. So it was nice to find.
I was going to say,
you're my people.
Kindred spirits.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed those shows like at all, like definitely pick up the book because the books are always better, really.
Love
like
that.
the books.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? There's only one circumstance where I think the show's better, and that's just Game of Thrones, which is also our book. So like, don't like again agnosticism. I'm cool of saying that. I love the show way more than the books. But another author that is just huge for us and really fun to read, Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is one of my favorite authors that we work with right now. She actually has a TV show that I think it's debuting on Amazon in August. And it's called Daisy Jones and the Six, and that's based on one of her books. And, one of the cool things about her books is that she picks like this particular time period, and there's like a connection between some of the characters. It's not a series necessarily, but you get like different sides of each character's story, which I think is so fun and really interesting. Daisy Jones in particular, I another book I worked on, but I'm not preferencing like her over anyone else, but that was one of my favorite books that I've read over the last few years. And picking those time periods, I'm 37. So, my points of reference in terms of, what different.
You said your age. I love it.
Right? I'm A-okay. I talk about my age all the time, don't I?
And we love it.
And the reason I bring that up is because, as we, move through life and as I'm growing up, there are time periods that like I don't know as much about as I really wish. I was born in 85, and we have a book called Malibu Rising from Taylor Jenkins Reid. And that takes place in the early 80s with like surf culture and like, what it means for to be a supporter of your family and all the drama from famous people that, it's a fantastic book if you haven't read it already.
Wow.
But, it's a lot of the books like that, I bring those up in particular, is because they take you to a different time. And it's a time where, I was just a glimmer in my parents' eye, but I have some context to their lives too. So hearing about like the late 70s, early 80s, all of this stuff that like have really shaped like what I am as an adult now, and like getting to like go back and have some point of reference and understanding what my parents went through, what my great grandparents went through historical fiction. A lot of those things are so connected, and it's nice to have books across the entire spectrum. And another kind of area I've been dabbling in is romance. I am not a romance reader, and almost like almost aggressively so. I'll be honest. I have not been fair to our romantic comedy books in general, but I have been working on this project with one of our editorial and marketing teams that focuses on these great, just like beach reads. Put it in your bag, read it on the plane, read it on the beach, read it like if you're waiting in the doctor's office and you just want something light and you're just like, I need to escape to a different world. But the first romantic comedy book that I picked up was a book called Savvy Sheldon Feels I had put it up. It's Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell. And excuse the saucy language. That's part of the book title. But the really cool thing about that is that the genre of romantic comedies, it traditionally you're thinking like maybe Love Actually kind of movies, or more traditional, a lot of the times exactly, mainly white characters too. So one of the things that we've been delving in is like publishing more widely and more multiculturally within that genre. So when I read Savvy Sheldon, I was like, oh, okay, this is a woman who's around my age, who has similar, professional concerns, similar, weight concerns, and feeling physically fit and feeling good about how you look. But also it was just really freaking funny. So I was just like, okay, so I'm actually missing out on something. And now as I work on these books, I take recommendations from folks that I work with, and Kate, my assistant that I worked with, she recommended Tessa Bailey, who, if you want a spicy read, that's a spicy read. That's a spicy. There's one called Fix Her Up that I am in the process of finishing, and I'm just kind of like,
ooh, okay.
It takes a lot to make
it. Makes you go like, I'm like, you piqued my interest.
No, definitely pick it up. It's fantastic. It's not a Random House book, but again, book agnosticism. That's that's my bag.
Sure. I'm curious. When do you find time? You're a busy woman. You're running. It's an international company.
Ooh, I think we broke up.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of our women who are entrepreneurs, we're trying. Oh, what was that?
I think your internet connection was just a little unstable there, so we lost you there for a little bit.
Oh, got it. Got it. I was trying to say, a lot of our women of a certain age, we're trying to find and carve out time for ourselves and take care of ourselves so that we're well enough. So when do you find time to pull out a book? Is it on a train? Do you find time? Is it a part of a morning, evening, or afternoon routine?
So as part of as a person who works on a lot of wellness books, I wish it was part of a routine. And that's something that I have taken away more recently, especially since I work on so many titles in different genres. Back when everybody was in the office, I have a really long commute. I live in South Brooklyn and Bay Ridge, for folks who know the layout of Brooklyn. So I had a good hour and 15-minute commute from my house to the office. So how much can I read in that like stretch of time. So, I would, use that time to kind of crack through books. And that was a great time for me to kind of unplug and make my commute into something that's not miserable, which in New York is very easy. It's really easy to have your commute ruined by anyone. But like, again, look, you have a little world to escape into. And that was what helped me at the time, just to get ready for the day. But now that I'm home all the time, it actually is really hard. It's really, really hard to figure out a good time to read, because my husband is at home sometimes, and he works in his office some other times. He's an adult educator. And one of the things about working from home is that there's always stuff around. There's stuff to do. Distractions. I have cats. They're always in my face, making it really hard for me to read. So, I'm really, we talk about this all the time on Well Enough and just internally, because we have a bunch of readers. When is a good time to read for you? And a lot of the times it's like, I can recommend anything to somebody all day, but like, what advice am I gonna take? I'm like, am I taking my own advice? But I learn a lot from our books. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is sleep. And as part of a regular routine, you're going to bed. I mean, sometimes I read a book that's a little too juicy and interesting before bed, and I'm up late. But again, like tired the next day, go to sleep like a baby because I had a great time. But a lot of times it's just like, carve out the time, actually schedule it. Because if you have a bedtime routine where I try to have like a half hour of just winding down, turning off the TV, I actually am not a huge phone person. I kind of ignore it 95% of the time, which is frustrating to a lot of people. But I'm like, I don't live on my phone. That's just it. I use it for shopping and, checking out articles, maybe. That's it. But a lot of the folks that we talk to will, have that time in the morning carved out and the time before bed carved out. I'm not a morning person, so that earlier in the day bit is hard.
Not going to work for you. Bedtime
is like.
I think that's a great tip, because I know, like, for me personally, I didn't get into reading until just recently, honestly. Like, I'm the quick kind of read. So I'm the kind of like the magazine reader, or like the online read, like I'll skim the news or whatever. Right. And so for me, it was, I think to your comment, it was just really hard to kind of just balance out or carve out the time and say, I'm going to sit down. And I think for me too, I'm slightly like, just like always wanting to get on the go. So to be settled in and to actually sit and read something, like actually took a lot of effort. Like it was almost like a lot of energy from me. But then I started to find some books where I'm like, okay, like I read Glennon Doyle's book and Ada Calhoun's book in like lightning speed. And I was surprised with myself. And it was I think because I was generally interested in the topic, but then it could also be like, I think it was it was something that I think was very pertinent to me at that point in time of my own life, and kind of like what I was reading was very realistic. So to your comment about being able to take away some of those tidbits or those ideas was something that was pretty cool, and it made just reading, enjoyable. And now I'm like a big fan. So I'm loving that.
Yay! I'm really happy to hear that. Glennon's one of ours too, and she is she's so powerful. She does a few events with us. We've done them virtually. When it was in person, it would be like tens of thousands of people, sold out stuff. But it's almost refreshing to have more access to some of our writers, some events in general, just to be able to see people talking about their lives and that storytelling aspect of it, because I love a good story. That's really, I tell people all the time that yes, we sell books, but like we're really selling stories and experiences. That's really, and convincing somebody to move from I am a magazine reader to I picked the book that's along the same lines, and now it's something I read all the time. That's like one of the like best pipelines to start reading more. So you don't have to be you don't have to only read books to be a reader. We're all readers, people. Even if you read on your phone, you're a scroller, you're reading the news, you're reading, and there are books for literally anything in the world. And being able, and one of the things that's part of my job is to make sure that people have the information to figure out if that book is for them. And I always love to get feedback from people, when you're saying that Glennon, changed how you read. Awesome. We did our jobs.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And I think, that's I think an important kind of thing to take away. And I'm curious now, like with kind of like some of the COVID restraints a little bit easing up a little bit, are you all still now doing live kind of conversations with your authors? Are you back to doing any type of tours, or are you still kind of virtual primarily?
Primarily virtual. And the reason for that is, we're a book publisher. We have offices, but we don't necessarily have like those big entertainment spaces. And it's like, oh, it's always fun to go into a publisher's office and see the books everywhere. But like, that's the lobby. And when you go upstairs, we have a second floor area. Very cool. Books everywhere. Everywhere else is just like, here's the box of galleys.
It's like the behind the scenes, right?
Wrote on. So it's like not as nice of an experience. So a lot of the times when we back in the former days, pre-pandemic days, when we had authors going on tour, we would have them go multi-city tours, depending on who it was. Go to libraries, go to bookstores, do appearances at conferences and other kinds of events. And having our authors in the real world was always a benefit for us. But in other ways, those events were specific to you being in that city or in that area or traveling to that city. Now we're able to talk to people over the whole world, which in a lot of ways is better. In some ways, it gives people the access to authors that not quite the same level or same experience as being in person and getting your book signed and being able to tell somebody, oh, you changed my life, and a lot of that stuff. But you're getting content that you wouldn't get otherwise, especially if you live somewhere where it's out of the way. A lot of those places in the country where they might have just one bookstore or and one main library, and we don't necessarily get to prioritize that just because we have a set schedule, we have a set budget. But now those people get to participate too,
which is a win-win, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and I know, so we've got this amazing just ticker down below talking about, along the lines of community kind of support and interaction. Like you guys donated like 16.7 million books since 2014. Like, I love that you guys are out there preaching, and doing what you are passionate about and sharing the power of books with the community at large. Like, that's monumental. I mean, congratulations. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing too. The other reason I like working in publishing is that we know for a fact that books change lives. Yeah. So it's like, if we can do anything to make sure that with all these banned books issues coming around, we can make sure that we have access to what people want to read and what people should be reading. Just as like education, there are definitely books that people should read, and like that it is like a foundation of things. But like, if we can, to a certain extent, we have to sell books, obviously, but if there are ways for us to get books in the hands of people that in lower income communities, we give a lot of books to incarcerated women and men, fresh out of incarceration, like Doe Fund, for instance. That's where my husband works. They have a whole program of reading and writing and education to get people adjusted back to the real world. And it's just kind of like, if it involves us giving away a huge amount of what we publish and make money off of, and we can make people's lives better, that's sort of like an additional social cause in addition to the usual business stuff. Right. And that that makes me feel really great.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, we're excited to hear that. And when I read that, I'm like, oh, that has to be something that we talk about, because that's just such a beautiful way to kind of continue to also inspiration future generations and even current generations, right? To enjoy the power and potential and transformation that comes with reading as well, too.
Exactly. Nice. I saw there was a question that was on the ticker and then it disappeared, but I think it was about authors. And this will be a resource that I share for everybody after this, but a few books that I think are worth checking out if you haven't already. We have a book by a woman named Queen Afua, and she is very much rooted in African spirituality and, feeling your body and understanding, how that affects your world. This kind of, it's a little bit more woo-woo than we usually publish. But the nice thing about that book is that during COVID, it just surfaced on its own. It was just something that we noticed that, a lot of Black women in particular were reading more of. And I see somebody on Facebook called that out. But yeah, it's a really interesting read, even if you're not fully embedded in that more metaphysical world. There's so many bits of information that I've found just through paging through the book where I was just like, wow, I haven't thought about that before. Or yeah, actually, this is something I should reach out to my mom about. I never thought about this before in relation to my life, especially as being a Black woman. So that book, it's called Sacred Woman. It's a wonderful resource. Check it out. I mean, it's one of those things where, sometimes people open the book and be like, oh, that's a little nugget for me. That's the best thing about picking up a new book. It's like, it is an accessible way to grab something and just have a new experience. So new experience, that's a great book. I'm trying to think of anything else really quickly that I'd like to point. Oh, so here's a book that kind of toes the line between a few different genres, and it's called Black Futures. It's an anthology of cultural writing, so essays, poetry, but then also art and recipes and personal stories. And I guess one of the themes of what I'm talking about is I really love the books that we've been publishing more recently that are this whole like 360 experience. Yeah. So it's for me, I don't really follow recipes again because I don't like to be told what to do.
We're learning so much about you, Maya.
I like the inspiration from them. But the cool things about for Black Food is another book that we published too. Those two anthologies are, timely, of course, of always, but especially now. But also it's, with the personal stories in conjunction with the visual artwork and the recipes, it puts it in a context. And like, I'm a person, I need context for an experience. So, with books that are multimedia and they have a lot of things going on, I'm also like, I also have ADHD. So for me, like having something to pick up and just page through and feel like I got like a quick experience, that always helps too when I don't have the focus to read a whole story. But you still end up learning a lot. And it's those like bits that you can take away from. If you read one essay, try one recipe that changes your life or changes, how you entertain your friends and family. Mm-hmm. That's the best thing that you can do.
No, that's fantastic. And, and just to kind of bring it back real quick. So in our book club, we are reading Yoke by Jessamine Stanley. And I think to your comment, I think one of the best ways to enjoy a book is when you get to read it with other people and then have a fabulous discussion. Everyone interprets things differently sometimes. And so to be able to have like a collaborative conversation. So whether you want to join our book club or want to create your own, or you're already part of one, like kudos to you for, getting together and reading as a group, and we hopefully you'll join us in our book club as well too.
Yeah, I would love to.
And Maya, we just have to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
We would love if you could shoot us a quick email, just the names of those books. We would love to post that within this thread on all of our social channels.
Absolutely.
So they know where to find all those books. We're getting a lot of requests in the back office, it looks like it. And then we'll also post a link to the Well Enough campaign as well, or not even a campaign, but
it's just who we are at this point. I did the whole like mental health journey campaign, and we just still use that page. And when I send it along for folks who are interested, we broke it down by categories. So
I love it.
In mindfulness, there's a category of books for that. If you're interested in sexual wellness, there's a category of books for that.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll send that along, and if folks have questions, or if there was an author that you really wanted to hear from, like holler. Can't make everything happen, but it's good to have that feedback so we know what our different audiences want.
Absolutely. And We are so blessed and thankful that we met on that faithful email.
I know.
Yeah.
Y'all are one of my favorite. I was like, we started off just working on stuff, but now I'm just like, I want to be you when I grow up.
I love it.
I keep growing up in different ways, but yeah, like this is the path, like being confident and, you know, running your own stuff and, you know, being able to uplift other voices. Like that's where I want to be. So it's always a pleasure with you guys.
Oh, well, and we're thrilled to have you back for Self-Care Camp, which will be in September. And thank you for sending us our mindfulness journals that our ladies will get when that event resurfaces back in September. And then we're working with you on another project that'll be next year. And then tell us really quickly about what's happening in September. And then Lupe's going to close us out.
Yeah. So we have a couple of really fun things going on. The first thing is our Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. We're planning for that now, but the kind of angle that we're taking this year is from a wellness angle. Like, how can we support the community in a way that is specific to the culture, not just, hey, here's this, like, you know, casting a wide net and just hoping that the right information lands with who it should land to. No, like, we have the books, we can focus on that. That will be through mid-September through mid-October. So as those plans come together, happy to share that too. We are also doing another push for National Menopause Awareness Month in October. We're going to start pushing out some book recommendations in late September. So we're gearing up to do a lot of great things for October. So yeah, that's another thing we'll keep you guys in the loop on. And of course, there's holiday. We have a bunch of really big releases coming out. So, you know, stay tuned.
In essence, subscribe to your newsletter because y'all got some serious cool stuff going on, is what that's all.
Yeah, and we're looking for interaction. So like, email us back, jump on socials, DM us. Like we actually very much, we have a whole content vertical where we're listening to what our readers say and getting our experts to give them the answers they need.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Maya, thank you so much for joining us
Of
today. It was a
course.
pleasure chatting books about you, you know, and getting to know you a little bit more. And ladies, for those of you tuning in, obviously this is our open house where we just have awesome conversations with amazing people like Maya. So stay tuned for our future editions of Open House. But in the meantime, pick up a book. And if you do, share it on our Facebook page and let us know what you are reading. In the meantime, for those of us also that want to join us next week, we're going to be having our monthly Breakfast Club morning social. It goes from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. over at the Clayton. And those are for folks that live here in the kind of greater Denver area. If you haven't been, you got to go. All you have to do is
I wish I could go.
Hey, girl, next time you're out here, we're going to want to have you for sure.
I always want an excuse to go to Denver. I've been there once and it's just beautiful. I want
to make that happen soon enough. But check out our events page for, you know, registration to join us for that. But in the meantime, have a great one, ladies. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Maya.
All right. Bye, y'all.